Hello and welcome to Tech Chat Tuesday. My name is Earl Kelly. I'm your host. I'm also the founder and CEO of EK3 Technologies right here in sunny Jacksonville, Florida. Today's topic is going to be on solid state drives. You might also know them as SSDs. They are the latest in technology for your workstation. And I'm going to talk to you about how you can leverage this technology in your business and in your home to increase your efficiency and make you that much more, make your data that much more reliable. Here at EK3 Technologies, we've been doing a lot of data transfers from hard disk drive to solid state drives for a couple of different reasons. And mostly it has to do with speed. We have a lot of our customers that come to us and they say, hey guys, I moved from Windows 7 to Windows 10. My computer is not moving as fast as it used to. I've got an i5. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM. It used to move a whole lot faster than this. What can I do about it? And the answer to that a lot of times is, let's talk to you about a solid state drive. So for those of you who have workstations and have computers, you probably aren't aware of this, but there's technology in our computer that we actually don't think a lot about, but has actually been around since 1956. And that technology is our hard drive. Standard hard drives, believe it or not, I looked it up just before this episode, have been around since 1956. That's right, hard drives have been around longer than the tube television. So you might recognize a hard drive if you have a computer at your home or in your office underneath your desk. Probably has something like this. This is a 3.5-inch hard disk drive. This particular one is a SATA disk drive. And this particular one holds 750 gigabytes of data. It is very heavy. We don't have weight vision, but this particular one weighs probably maybe 2 to 3 pounds. I'll say that, but it is very, very heavy. If you have a laptop, you probably have something that looks a lot like this. This is a 2.5-inch hard drive. It's a much smaller hard drive, obviously, but it's actually not smaller in data. This particular hard drive is, I'm trying to look it up, is 750 gigabytes as well. So both of these, while they are different sizes, they are the same size in data. So what makes this particular hard drive, the data in it so slow, and why am I talking to you about moving to an SSD drive? Well, again, the hard drive was was first invented in 1956, and it actually uses magnets to put the data on the drive. So let's open one of these up and see what they look like and see exactly what's going on the inside. So by the use of television magic and cameras, I'm going to go ahead and open up this drive. And you'll see that this drive consists of a large round platter here. It also consists of some circuit boards and a couple of gizmos over here. Gizmos is an official term, so feel free to use that. And it also consists of this arm. Now what happens in this drive when you plug it in is this platter spins, and it spins very, very fast. Depending on the speed of your hard drive, it spins somewhere between 5,400 rotations per second and 720, rotations per minute, and 7,200 rotations per minute. So it spins super, super fast. As it spins, this little arm comes back and forth and reads the data and magnetizes or demagnetizes little sections of the data so that it can be read and erased, etc., etc., etc. So the maximum throughput that you have for this particular device is, and again, this is depending on the brand. This also depends on the type of hard drive that you purchased, but you're looking at somewhere between 50 and 120 megabytes per second of data read. Now, if you think about that, right now, most of us are doing large pictures, they're about 512 megabytes. I know when I take a picture with my camera, sometimes if I take a very high definition picture, it's about 756 megabytes. So if you look at that, so we're doing somewhere between 75 and 125 megabits per second. And while that doesn't seem like a lot, that's about roughly about 7 seconds to load a picture onto this particular drive. That doesn't seem like a lot, but compound that by everything that you're doing on your computer, and that can take a lot of time out of your computer. Now, also, this can be erased by magnets. We're all worried about magnets. We're all worried about putting our computer up against the side of the microwave, etc. And these can actually be erased. A very strong magnet can come and actually demagnetize the whole hard drive and wipe out all of your data on it. So these hard drives, the boot time can actually take somewhere between 30 and 40 seconds, depending on what operating system you're using and what type of drive you have. So you're looking at about a 30 to 40 second boot time for your computer just because you're using a standard hard drive. Now again, there's nothing wrong with standard hard drives. They've been around. I mean, they wouldn't have been around so long if they weren't reliable. They do have some flaws. One of the flaws is that this little arm can break, but they're usually rated for about 1.5 million hours before that happens. However, I can tell you that in my role here at EK3 Technology and some of my past roles, there are times that these can actually just break all on their own after about 20 hours. And what usually happens is this little arm has some kind of mechanical malfunction, and you'll hear the dreaded click. And so what happens is you boot up your computer's going click, click, click. All of a sudden, you get, I don't have a hard drive anymore. Then you end up calling your IT person. Your IT person has to come out. And usually that means something has happened here. I've also had it where someone actually set their laptop down. Well, it was told to me that it was too hard, but they either placed it down or set it down or something dropped, and you can actually shatter some of these. You can shatter all of these. You can actually shatter these gizmos that are in here as well, and then your hard drive is kaput, right? So if you do have a hard drive, however, that is kaput, you can contact us. We do have people who can actually open these up and try to read the information that's on there if possible. So I don't want this video to discredit hard drives. I just want you to know that they are super slow. In many cases, the hard drives that are in your laptop are actually the slowest thing in your laptop. So if you think about your particular laptop or your particular computer, you have an i5 processor, which is super, super fast. You have 4 to 8 gigs of RAM, which usually runs at about 300. Again, depending on what size RAM you have, you're looking at super fast speed. You've got a SATA connection on your hard drive, which can take 6 gigabytes a second. That is super fast. So 6 gigabytes a second, and then you bring it into your hard drive, and you're only at 50 to 120 megabytes a second. So you can see how that can slow your computer down. So how do we combat that? Well, in 1991, there was a device that was introduced, and it was introduced to the world. It was actually first brought to the world in an IBM ThinkPad, which makes my heart fill with pride when I think that we sell Lenovo, and we're behind Lenovo ThinkPads 100%. But it was actually introduced to the world, and it's called, in 1991, excuse me, and it's called a solid state drive. And what a solid state drive is actually a device, and we've actually been using it for quite some time. You guys are probably familiar with this device right here. This is a USB stick, right? So this USB stick has memory in it. It's on little chips, okay? It's in here. It doesn't require a physical platter. Doesn't require any gizmos. Doesn't require any magnetics. It's all electronic. So the information is passed back and forth electronically, put out through the USB, and it's put into your computer. Now the problem with that is that USBs currently are running about 300 to 400 megabytes a second, depending on the USB type and the USB speed. A USB 3 is currently faster than Firewire, which the Fruit company introduced first as a faster option to USB 2. But USB 3 is currently the fastest. It's running about 300 to 400 depending on what you're doing. So what if we were to take that information and we were to put it into something larger, something that could connect to the hard drive in your computer and to what's called a SATA bus, and we could make the bottleneck that is your hard drive a lot faster. And that's exactly what an SSD drive is. An SSD drive is basically the same technology that's in a USB stick, but it's in an actual hard drive form. So if you look at this, this is an Intel hard drive. I highly recommend Intel hard drives. We also sell SanDisk, etc., but we sell the most of Intel hard drives. It is simply a small device. It looks a lot like a standard hard drive. The difference is, if you could feel it, this weighs probably somewhere between half a pound to 3/4 of a pound. This has no weight at all in it, none. And it still has the SATA bus, but it has no weight at all. It's super light, and they only come in 2.5. Okay, so all that happens in one of these hard drives is that information is transmitted back and forth in here. If I was to take this off, which I'm not going to do, but if I was to take this off, information is just transferred back and forth between the chips. Unlike a standard hard drive, there are no moving gizmos, there's no magnets, nothing happens in here that you can see. So information would just go back and forth between the chips. That back and forth actually speeds up your data transmission between this and your computer. In a standard hard drive, you're looking at about 50 to 120 megabytes per second. In this, depending on what you've purchased, you're looking at somewhere between 200 to 550 megabytes per second. You're looking at about 10 to 13 seconds of boot time. So you'll notice that when you go to the computer store, you'll notice that a lot of the newer computers now, they are touting how fast the computers start up. And they start up that fast because of the SSD drives that are in them. You have about a 30% faster opening speed, again, depending on which type of hard drive you buy. You have a 30% faster opening speed for files. So if you're pulling out a same 756 megabyte file that we were talking about a few moments ago, that's going to take you about 7 to 10 seconds, depending on what else is going on your hard drive, on your standard hard drive. On an SSD hard drive, that's going to take maybe a minute. Excuse me. Wow, that got really bad. It's going to take between a second to 2.5 seconds to open up that same file size. So you say to me, what does that mean? So I saved 5 seconds of my day. If you multiply that by the number of files that your computer opens on a daily basis and a minute-by-minute basis, especially the files that are operating system files that you don't even know it's opening, you end up with a faster working computer. You're now able to get data from the hard drive into that fast processor, into that fast RAM, a whole lot quicker than you could with the hard drive. Now, a personal anecdotal story I'll tell you is that I have a Lenovo ThinkPad. It's actually an IBM ThinkPad, but it's from 2007. It was built in 2007. It is an i5, and it has 8 gigs of RAM. Over the years, I've updated the RAM. But when I moved from Windows 7 to Windows 10, it actually started moving very slowly for me. And the laptop has a sentimental value only because it and I have traveled all over the country just doing different presentations, etc. And so I really wanted to, I was really sad when it started to move slower, and I really wanted to do some upgrades to it. But no matter what I did, I put more RAM in it. No matter what I did, it wouldn't go any faster than it was. And a friend of mine said, a lot like I'm telling you, he said, why don't you put an SSD drive in it and see what happens? And sure enough, I put an SSD drive in that laptop. I still have that laptop today. It works better actually today than it did when I purchased it, and it's running Windows 10. And the reason is it can get data in and out of its hard drive faster and into its processor faster than it can if I'm using a regular hard drive. Some other cool things about these drives is they are not magnetic sensitive. So I can use this around all kinds of magnets, and I don't have to worry about whether my data makes it or not. These are very magnet safe. Secondly, these have about a 2 million hour lifespan. So if you were to store some data on here, the lifespan, first of all, of this particular device is about 2 million hours. The lifespan of the data on here is for almost forever. There is a statistic, but I didn't look it up because it was so long. It's actually like 10 times longer than the data on here. Now, the big difference in these comes in terms of size. Okay, these particular hard drives. So as we talked earlier, this hard drive is a 750 gigabyte hard drive. This hard drive here is only a 256 gigabyte hard drive. And you're going to see that a lot if you go out and purchase a new computer, and it's going to have a hard drive in it, or excuse me, a solid state hard drive in it. Some of the new Lenovo X1 tablets and some of the other devices that are out there from the Fruit Company and Microsoft, they all will have some 256 to 512 gigabytes of SSD drive in them. So you say to me, well, that's, why would I switch to that? Because I have 3 terabytes worth of data in my computer right now, and excuse me, and I have 3 terabytes worth of storage. I'm really only using about 150 gigabytes of it, but I still have all the storage that I need. Well, as technology has expanded, we've actually changed the way that we use hard drive space. Whereas in the past, you might have needed 3 terabytes worth of data. Today, you really don't need to store all that data on your mobile device. We have cloud services now, so we have Dropbox, we have OneDrive, all of those. You can put your pictures that you were storing on your laptop, you can put them out in the cloud and get that out of your laptop. Get that off of that hard drive and put it somewhere that it can be stored and safe and will be there. You also have iCloud, you have all these different cloud services that you want to use. I'm not going to name them all. But we've started to do that. We've started to move all of our data off of there. And as we do that, we really only need to make space on a solid state drive for our operating system. So Windows 10 by itself is going to use somewhere between, again, depending on the amount of options that you have open, going to use somewhere between 10 to 50 gigabytes of space. It can actually go all the way up to 100 gigs of space, again, depending on what you have installed. So that's really all you need for your operating system, and that leaves you plenty of space in order to save things to your computer. You're probably not going to save music files. We have Spotify, we have Pandora. So if you have a bunch of music files, there's really no reason to save them. You can upload them to Amazon Music or Google Music or what have you. But if you really want to keep those, you have your computer at home, you really want your computer to move faster, but you want it to go faster, but you still want to store those files, I don't recommend moving from your regular hard drive into a solid state drive. Now here at the office, you have what's called a hybrid system. And I have a lot of files that I store. A lot of these videos are stored on my computer here. They're large files. I don't really want to put them in the cloud, but I don't really want them taking up space on my SSD drive because it's more expensive than HDD space, and I don't really need to get at it that often. So I have a 1 terabyte standard drive, and I have a 256 gigabyte SSD drive. My Windows 10, my Outlook, all of that stuff is running on my SSD drive, and it's super fast. Everything else is on my storage drive, which is at a standard speed. And even though it's at standard speed, Windows can actually load it a lot faster because it's actually loading just that particular file and not trying to have to load all the files that are also on the SSD drive. So if you have an older laptop and it's running slow and it's running sluggish, I recommend that you come and see your local IT professional and you ask what it would look like if you put an SSD drive in your computer. We can do that depending on the size. We can do that for very inexpensive. And we actually just transfer all the files from one drive to the new drive, put it back in your laptop or your computer, and let it go. It's a really simple process, and you'll be surprised at the difference it makes in your day-to-day. As always, I appreciate you listening and tuning in. Please be sure to turn in. Please be sure to turn in. Wow, I cannot talk. I apologize. Please be sure to tune in next week, right here from sunny Jacksonville, Florida. If you need any assistance, we're here. You can contact us at any one of our support numbers. We have both Tampa and Jacksonville support available. That doesn't mean that we don't support you. It just means that these are our numbers. When we're always available to answer emails anytime at support@ek3tech.com. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you found it informative. We look forward to seeing you next week.